Hi and welcome to my channel. If we haven't met before, my name's Rebecca McLeod. Most of people call me Beck. I'm a professional chef and pastry chef based here in Melbourne. One of the perks of being in my inner circle, which is my exclusive community for my personal Thermomix customers, is access to our Inner Circle LMS program and my personal Facebook group. I offer live Zoom sessions where we deep dive into exciting cooking techniques, share tips, troubleshoot challenges, and of course enjoy plenty of delicious inspiration together. Recently I've had a lot of requests about slow cooking in the Thermomix. Not only in my inner circle but the wider community have asked for tips as well. Rather than simply recording a Zoom session, which I normally run for Inner Circle, I thought I'd create this dedicated YouTube video so that everyone, whether you're in my inner circle or not, can discover my channel and watch it in your own time. So stay tuned as we get into the nitty-gritty of slow cooking with Thermomix. If you've ever wondered how to make melt-in-your-mouth meals, tender curries, or simply set and forget comfort food, you're in the right place. All right, so what are we talking about today? So we're going to talk about slow cooking. What is slow cooking? Why do we slow cook? What are the best cuts of meat to use? I think that was one of your questions, Helen. What is the best method to use in your slow cooker? I'm going to answer all your questions. Now, we had over 120 people in the end book in for this, so there is a lot of questions there. So I'm going to go through them as fast as I can. And a lot of them I won't be answering at the end because I'm answering throughout this content. So yeah, I won't make you stick around for ages. So I'll answer those questions and I'll just explain a little bit about who I am. I'm Beck. I'm a chef and pastry chef. I have a cooking school here in Narre South. We've had the cooking school here since 2010, and I do lots of online classes today more than on site, although we do both. That's what I am. And a couple of years ago, I came back as a Thermomix consultant because we have Thermomixes here at the cooking school, and we found that as time went on and people started to learn about Thermomix, because, you know, in 2010, not many people knew about them, I started creating a following of Thermomix owners. So I would say probably 80% of my followers are Thermomix owners. That's pretty much what we do here at Becstable. So what does slow cooking actually mean? Or what does it mean to you? The first thing that comes to mind is slow cookers. And I think that goes straight to, oh, it's going to take, 6 to 8 hours to cook this dish. It doesn't really need to take that long. If you think about slow cooking as a slow cooker in a pot on the stove, we all know that if we put the right cut of meat in there, it can take, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. So I know one of the questions that someone asked is why is it so short in the Thermomix? And that depends on which recipe you've chosen, what cut of meat you've chosen, and the time that's set for that recipe. Now, you can go into the slow cooking mode and set it yourself. I blame the crock pot. So the crock pot was invented about 1970 something. And it was actually a godsend for us women that were at work or had kids that we needed to look after, because we knew that we could throw all our ingredients in the morning, pop the lid on, and it was safe to leave and cook while we were busy doing something else, possibly at work. There was only 2 settings on your slow cooker. I know there are some out there that you can change these days, but they used to be low and high, and I think that's what we all think about. And low meant it was going to take 4 to 6 hours, and high meant it was going to take about 8 hours. After that, what would happen is if you put all your meat and vegetables into a slow cooker, pop the lid on and leave it for 8 hours, pretty much everything tastes the same. It could taste really good, but pretty much everything tastes the same. Your potatoes and your carrots and your meat all taste the same. And often what would happen is potatoes could break down and they'd disappear in there, and so on. I always say it depends on what you want to do and what your focus is when you're slow cooking. Are you slow cooking because you want to use meat that's a cheaper cut that needs some time to slow cook? Sorry, just letting people in. Or do you need to cook something while you're at work or you're busy doing something else? I think most people that follow me are in a situation where they can put a meal on at lunchtime and have it ready for dinner. Not so much, they're going out in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and coming home at 6 or 7 o'clock at night because they're at work all day. I'm not sure if that's always the best way for the best tasting food. So I choose to cook shorter times, but we'll get into that. 8 to 10 hours is the usual for a slow cooker, but we're talking about slow cooking, and you can actually cook for 8 hours in your Thermomix if you choose to. That's an option that you have. So cooking for shorter durations at the right temperature will avoid overcooking your food. There's a thing that happens with meat, and if you undercook it, it's tough. If you overcook it, it can dry out and become tough. If you get it in that little zone in the middle somewhere, you can have beautifully tender meat. Now, I've found that some of the dishes in cookie dough, I have cut the meat too small. It's told me to do like 2 centimeter cubes, but cook it for 5 hours. Now, I've stopped it at maybe 3.5 because at cooking it at those small pieces of meat at that temperature for that amount of time can actually overcook it and make it dry. Does that make sense? Yeah, awesome. The other thing is adding vegetables. So if you're going to do an 8-hour cook, if you can and you have the opportunity to throw vegetables in somewhere later on rather than having them in right at the beginning, will actually keep your vegetables in the right shape and sizes so that they don't melt down to nothing. But it'll also make it so that the flavors will pop. So carrot will taste like carrot, potato will taste like potato. With your Thermomix TM6s, you'll have to pause the cooking and wait for the arms to open and take off the lid. But if you've got a TM7, because I know quite a few of you have on here today, you just have to simply take the lid off, throw your veg in or throw whatever you like in and then pop the lid back on. It won't be locked while it's slow cooking. So that's a good way too. So layer flavors. So I really like to saute or brown my meat and vegetables before I start because it just gives it more complexity of flavors. You don't always have to do that if you add other ingredients to build up those flavors. But doing it that way, you can use less ingredients. So browning something at the start, you can use less ingredients and have really beautiful flavors. So someone also asked as one of the questions was, how do you make your meat brown in your Thermomix without stewing it? You do it in batches. It depends on what sort of meat. I'm sending you an ebook after this, and I have a recipe, a slow cook recipe for lamb shanks as well. So, of course, they don't fit into your Thermomix bowl, but I brown them in an air fryer first. You can brown them in your oven or under a grill. Whatever you can use to actually brown first is good. But with your Thermomix, there is also links in the ebook that I'm taking you straight to recipes that will brown things. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But do things in small batches. If you throw in, a kilo of meat in a pot on the stove, it's going to stew. We all know that. It's the same thing in your Thermomix. You need to reduce the amount, do it in batches, and cook. Now, with your TM6, you'll have to find a recipe that is in Cookie Do that will do that high heat for you. With your TM7, you can just go straight to the browning mode, and you can use that. How does it work? Cooking food, specifically protein, which is I think most of you are after, we cook that. If you've got a slow cooker, it cooks between 70 and 90 degrees. Now, typically it's about 74 degrees if you are cooking slow cooker, and it's 8-hour cook. So it's around about 74 degrees. So it's just outside the danger zone, below 80. Now, if you're cooking in your slow cooker and it's going to take around 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, then the temperature of your slow cooker will be at around 84 to 90 degrees. So what you want is it to be under boiling. So you don't want the ingredients in there to be boiling. You want them to be on a low simmer. You know that having food cooking at this temperature will actually break down connective tissue. Someone was asking about, on my Facebook group last week, was saying that the meat she was using didn't have very much fat in it. Is that why it's tough? It's not necessarily because of the fat, it's because of the connective tissue. The connective tissue is what breaks down and becomes soft when you cook it at the right temperature for the right amount of time. It's not so much fat. So that's not an issue. Traditionally, we would use a lidded Dutch oven or a casserole dish to make our slow cooked food in, and we probably would put it in our oven if we didn't have a slow cooker. And we know that if we put it in there at about 110 to 130 degrees, that it will take an hour and a half, 2 hours to cook something in there, depending on what size the meat is, of course. With the slow cooker mode, it actually stops and starts. So if you have a TM6 or a TM7, the slow cooker mode is not, the blades aren't moving all the time. It only turns every so often to make sure that everything that's in the bowl is actually being close to the bottom of the bowl where the heat is, the heat source is. So it doesn't go all the time. So it shouldn't shred your meat, because a few people have asked about why their meat has shredded. Someone also asked, do you always have to use the blade cover? No, you don't. And I'm going to show you some recipes that you don't need to use that for. The advantages of slow cooking is to tenderize those cuts of meat that are cheaper, that have got lots of connective tissue in them. If you cook those meats for a long period of time, they have more flavor. So the meat on the animal where it does the most work has the most flavor. When you thinking about fillet steak, which is from the back of the animal, that doesn't get a lot of work to it. So it's not got as much flavor as, say, a beef cheek that does lots of chewing all day. And that's much tougher, and you have to break down those collagen fibers, but it's got lots and lots of flavor. It preserves the moisture. So even with your Thermomix, what you would do is you would have your MC in on slow cook, or you would have your simmer basket on top, so that you weren't reducing it too much. Because you've got, a lid on there that's 3/4 covered anyway, you're not reducing heaps. With your TM7, you've just got your lid on with the lid cap. So that prevents water loss as well. Reduces waste. So, yeah, a lot of people use this for reducing waste. I often have juices left over from a slow cook that I'll use in the next one, or I use in a soup, which I'm going to show you in a minute in a video. The other thing is it's really great because it's hands-off cooking. So we've all got our Thermomixes because of that. Slow cook mode. So I always say, if you haven't slow cooked in your Thermomix before, do try and find a recipe that's on Cookie Do and test that first. If you can do that, it will teach you what your Thermomix is actually doing, and then you'll be able to make your own recipes up or take a recipe from a cookbook that's a slow cookbook and use it in your Thermomix. So if you don't normally create your own recipes, understanding Cookie Do and the recipes that they've got in there is a really good way to go about it. I'm going to show you, talk to you about 4 different recipes that I love. And these are my go-to recipes if I'm not just going straight to browning and slow cooking in my Thermomix. These are recipes that I've used so many times in my TM6 that I understand them and I know what's going on. These are in your ebook that I'm going to send you after this, and there are links that take you straight to Cookie Do so that you can find them easily as well. Now, this first one here, it says slow cooked lamb curry. What they're saying here is it's a 9-hour total cook, but 6 hours slow cooking. And what they've done is they've put a marinade on the meat for 3 hours beforehand, and then they're slow cooking for 6 hours. So it depends on what sort of meat, on what cut you're using for this. Looking at the recipe and seeing how that works, I choose what meat and vegetables to put in there as I go. You'll see what I mean in a minute when I show you the video. Beef cheek bourguignon. We hardly ever have beef cheeks here because my husband doesn't like them. Christine knows he's a bit fussy. So he doesn't like all that connective tissue. He doesn't like any gristle or anything like that. So we don't use beef cheek. I really like gravy beef for him. It works very similar to beef cheek, and that's what I mainly use when I choose the beef cheek bourguignon recipe, and I just swap out the cheeks to gravy beef. Chicken chasseur, I've put this one down here because you can see here that this is a 1.3 hour slow cook. Now, chicken, you don't need to cook chicken for hours and hours and hours. It just, it doesn't do anything good for it. So this is a 1.3 hour cook. Now, it is thighs and not breast. If you're going to use breast, I wouldn't slow cook breast personally, but I know some people don't like thighs. I would even do less time, and I'd probably leave the pieces larger than cut them small, and the video is going to explain why I do that. The next one is Chinese 5-spice beef cheeks. So that's another beef cheek recipe, but you can use any slow cooked beef for this recipe, but it's just a different method. So I either use the beef cheek bourguignon or I use this spiced beef cheek. All right, so slow cooked beef cheek bourguignon. This is what it looks like on Cookie Do. This is the recipe. Now, I'm not supposed to show this, so if anybody tells anyone, is there any consultants here? Wave your hands. No. So, because this is a Cookie Do recipe, I'm not supposed to share it, but, I'll just deny it. No, so it's all right. The reason why I love this recipe is, have a look. There are 4 steps. So cool to be able to just do 4 steps and have this cooking for 5 hours. Now, as I say, I don't necessarily do exactly what it says on the ingredient list. So let's have a look at a quick video of me on the front screen. I've actually put in my week today to do the beef cheek bourguignon. So let's go beef cheek bourguignon. This is TM6. It looks like this. Scroll down and have a look at it. So this is 5 hours and 25 minutes, 15 minutes prep time. There's 4 portions. Easy. I'd agree with that. So this one, what it's asking you to do is to place garlic and thyme in the mixing bowl and chop. And then it's saying that you want to brown 400 grams of your beef cheeks. So it's saying put the butter, oil, cocktail onions, so 150 grams of brown onions if you like, salt, and 400 grams of the beef cheeks. So it's asking for 2 beef cheeks. If I scroll down here, it says 2 beef cheeks, approximately 400 grams each. So that's 80 grams of beef cheek. But it's asking you to do high temperature with 1 beef cheek, so 400 grams of it. So if you were doing this on in a pot on the stove, you would still have to reduce the amount of beef cheek, because if you put more than 400 grams in there, you'll be stewing it rather than browning it. So you would have to do it in batches. Same thing with your Thermomix. But this recipe is actually asking you to do 400 grams of beef cheeks and then go on to later on add. All right, so down here on step 4, it says to add the mushrooms, carrot, bay leaves, water, remaining uncooked beef cheeks. So that's your other 400 grams. So at this first step here, when it's got high heat mode, it's getting you to do just 400 grams and browning that off. Now, if you want to, you can actually do the other 400 grams. If you can be bothered, you can take the 400 grams that's in your Thermomix out, go back a step, and then put the raw 400 grams in and press high temp again, and do that. But I don't think you need to. There's enough flavour in this recipe to continue on. At this step 4, when you add the mushrooms, carrot, bay leaves, or whatever ingredients you're going to put in, you can start the slow cook. It goes for 5 hours at 95 degrees. All right, so that's a clue. So that is saying to do beef cheek for 5 hours at 95 degrees. If you were going to do this recipe and you were going to go straight to slow cooking, you could actually just type that into your Thermomix to do that amount of time. Now, if you're not using beef cheek, I suggest that you start checking it at 4 hours, because if you're using a different cut of meat and it doesn't take as long to cook, then you don't want it to be overcooked by going to 5 hours. I'm going to play another video now, and I'm going to show you how I go about swapping this recipe from beef cheeks to using gravy beef. All right, I'm going to start the recipe. So it starts off with 3 cloves of garlic, or thereabouts, and I'm going to leave that the same. Then it says 2 sprigs of fresh thyme. Well, I'm going to use rosemary instead, just to show you that I can. So you want roughly the same amount. Get rid of the stalks. So pop that in. Then we're going to put the measuring cup and chop 5 seconds, speed 7. Next, 20 grams of olive oil. Next, 20 grams of butter. And it's saying 150 grams of cocktail onions. Drained. Well, I am going to use brown onions. Now, as well as brown onions. So that so far is 74 grams, but if I make this a mirepoix, so I'm up to 114. I'll chop that fairly fine because it's a bit stringy, because it will be cooked for 5 hours, so cutting it fine. Will solve all those issues. Okay, what have we got now? There we go, perfect. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Next, beef cheek. Alright, so I'm using gravy beef instead of beef cheek. And we want 400 grams. I'm not going to cut the pieces too small. Remember that when you cook meat, it shrinks. So if you make these too small, they're going to be dry and not very nice. So I'm going to just leave them in chunks like this. Alright, and we want 400 grams. Now, on this recipe, it doesn't actually have the weigh scale. So, to find out, I'm just going to remove my camera here and bring it down to show you this. A little ellipsis at the top. Scales. There you go. Alright, so we've put the splash guard on and started it for the 8 minutes of high heat. Okay, so we've got 10 seconds left. Okay, let's have a look. So we'll take this out and I'll just show you how to reverse. Okay. So now I am going to take this out again. How to go back. So we want to do this step again. We just have to go back and then put our beef cheek back in, press next, and off we go again. Okay, another 8 minutes. Okay, so the second 8 minutes is up. I'm gonna just remove this now. So let's go next. Here it's saying that we're going to make a paste, but in this recipe I am not. So, but I'm still going to add a few other things. So the red wine I will put in. So here we go. I am putting in 80 grams of red wine because at this stage you can do whatever you like. Then I'm going to put back the first lot, 15 grams of plain flour to help thicken the sauce. Next, okay, 15 grams of meat stock. Okay, so here I am going to add, instead of 15 grams of meat stock, I'm going to put in one of my continental beef stock pots because I like them. And then I'm going to go next, 25 grams of tomato paste I'm not going to do. I'm going to skip right through now until it goes to the 130 grams of water. So I'm replacing something that I made earlier, which is leftovers of a tomato sauce base, and this is replacing all those other ingredients. Oh, I can't even get it out, it's jellified. So that's going to go in. Alright, now I'm going to put the reserved beef is in already. I'm going to put the simmering basket on the top and start 5 hours at 95 degrees. Done. After cooking it for 4 hours at 95 degrees, because I had not beef cheeks, I was using gravy beef. And that's what it looks like at the end. And that's on my cauliflower and potato mash. The main takes from that, I guess, One, don't cut the meat too small. If you cut it too small, it'll shrink and it'll dry out and not be nice. And check it an hour earlier than what it says. If you wanted to cook this for a longer period of time because you need it to, because you're busy doing something else, you're going to have to drop the temperature down. So this, like I said, went to 95 degrees. So you will have to drop the temperature down and do it manually, or find another recipe that has a slow cooked recipe in it that uses a lower temperature. I hope that makes sense, so that it's not overcooking it. All right, so what about lamb? So this recipe is another one that I showed you earlier that I like to go to, and this one has an extra step. But what this one's doing is, it's a little bit different. Where the first beef cheek bourguignon, what it was doing was asking you to brown the meat, this one is asking you to brown the onions and garlic at the start, add your aromatics, and then you go to high heat. So it will do a high heat cook for you so that you get the browning on those ingredients rather than on the meat. And then the meat is added way down here after you've cooked. Now, you may have noticed that with the beef cheek bourguignon, you don't need to use a blade cover. What happens with the Thermomix, like I said earlier, it doesn't, when you're in slow cooking mode, the blades are not turning all the time. It turns every so often to move the ingredients around, but they're not going all the time. So when people say that their meat shredded, I'm not sure. Email me, let me know what you've done, because it shouldn't be shredding. But with this particular recipe, it does ask you to put your blade cover on, and that's because it's cooking for 6 hours. So it is actually longer, and lamb will fall apart. Now, like I said, these are in the ebook and you've got links straight to them. So I'll show you that a little bit in a minute and how that works. As I say, the secret sauce of cooking with the slow cooker mode is to find a recipe to start off with that is similar to what you want to use. Choose a cookie dough recipe so that you can, and follow it to a T so that you can go, right, this is how that works. So I can keep going and change it now to what I want. So what are the rules for adapting a recipe? First of all, I think the rules is that you need to swap ingredients like for like. So if it says to do beef cheek, don't put chicken thigh fillets because it's going to be way too long. If it says to put liquid in, I tend to put less liquid. So this is a bit, I'm going to be a bit contradict myself. But the first time I would do it, I would put as much liquid in as the recipe states to do, so that you know how much you end up with at the end, because you'll be surprised at how much liquid actually comes off vegetables and meat when you slow cook it. And you don't want it to run out. It's highly unlikely that it will, especially if you have a TM7, because you have a lid on with just a few vents. So that's not going to do that. So as you cook meat and vegetables, the liquid that's in them will release and you'll have more liquid. So as I say, I tend to follow a Thermomix recipe the first time round. Following it the first time is the best way. I really do like to caramelize my meat or onions or something to start off with, so I have those layers of flavor. In the ebook that I'm sending you, I've created a link, and if it stops working at any time, please sing out, because sometimes the Vorwerk people change things and the links can be broken. And I've made a search under my requirements, and it's come up with a whole stack of different recipes for you, so you don't have to find the words. But we'll go on to what cuts are best. So if you have a look at that list there, I think that will help you, Helen. You were asking what was the best beef. And I really like gravy beef. here because my husband doesn't complain about the sinew and the connective tissue. But any of these things will work. Even short ribs work. I don't know if you know, but you can actually put drumsticks in your Thermomix and cook a recipe with drumsticks in it without it damaging the blades. As long as you find a cookie dough recipe that does that, mind you, don't just turn it to speed 5 or anything and with your drumsticks in, because that might not be a very good idea. Now, someone asked about topside. Now, with the Thermomix, I don't necessarily cook large chunks of meat. I tend to cut them up so that they are bite-sized pieces. So, something like this. So this is topside, and I've just cut it into portions rather than have it one whole piece. If I was going to do a whole piece, I have to be truthful. I would probably use my oven and use a pot with a lid to slow cook, or I'd wrap it in foil. It is one big roast, if you like. So what I've done is, if you've had this ebook before, you will be able to download it again because I've updated it. So this is the cover. I don't know if you can see that okay. This is the cover for the old ebook, and I've updated it, and the new cover looks like this. Here we go. All right, so this is the ebook. What I suggest you do not print it. It is massive. So this is what I do. I don't know why, bit of a nerd. I like the science of cooking. So what I suggest you do is put it on a device that you can use, like a phone, iPad, computer. These are all the pages in the book, the topics, the contents. So you can actually use the contents to click to take you straight to where you want to go. So for this particular one, let's have a look at recipes down here. So this is where I was talking about. I've got this written up for you. So all you need to do is click on here. So finding high heat recipes for the TM6. So that link will take you to this cookie dough page. And if you've got a TM6, you need to abide by these rules. In the TM6, this recipe here says sauteed capsicum. This recipe here says browned beef mince. Now, saute, a lot of people don't realize this, but saute doesn't mean caramelize heaps. It just means lightly brown. It's saute. So you've got sweat, which is cook without color. Then you've got saute, which is light color. Then you've got caramelize. Some people have chosen this sauteed onions thinking this is going to brown, but they won't. There is actually a browned caramelized onions in here. Now, what you've got to do is, if you've got a TM6, you've got to make sure that you've got weight for weight. Now, your Thermomix knows exactly what weight is in the bowl all the time. So you must adhere to that, because if you don't, your Thermomix will say, and it won't do it for you. So the other thing is, though, your Thermomix doesn't know what you've put in there. It knows how much weight is in there, but it doesn't know what you've put in there. So, for instance, if you wanted to brown 400 to 500 grams of meat, you could use this browning function for this recipe, because it says pop it all in and it will go straight to high heat. Now, if it's not brown enough, all I would do is backspace and go again. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're using it double time. But keep an eye on it, because you might have to, because it says that it takes 25 minutes to do this, which is what it would do for that amount of onions on the stovetop. It takes ages to brown onions. They're full of liquid. So just keep an eye on it. If you change the ingredient, you need to keep an eye on it to make sure what's happening. Now, the good thing about caramelizing it inside the bowl is that flavor stays in there. So when you go to the next step, you won't be washing it out. You'll be leaving all those flavors in there. So that's how that works. All right, so I've just picked up a whole stack of different ones here that have caramelization. So, and they've all got different amounts, different quantities, and you'll be able to find something easy. These are the recipes that I was talking about. So beef cheek bourguignon opens this one up. Let me see if I can shrink the screen so you can actually see what I'm doing. Chicken chasseur, you open that and it goes straight to it. Now, if this doesn't work, that's because you're not logged into Cookie So if you click one of these links and or if you're logged out, and I'll show you what happens because I know people have problems with this. I'm just going to log out. So if I click on that, oh no, it's gone straight there. But if you click on it, oh no, it's saying sign up for free. So I'm logged out and people go, oh no, but I have Cookie Do. This isn't working. All you need to do is go to the menu and go log in. And once you log in, you'll be able to cook today or look at the recipe. So that's what's confusing some people. You must log in. Go to the hamburger up here, the menu, and click on that, and that's what we'll do next. We'll look at the questions, which there are stacks of. So if anybody needs to leave, I won't feel, but we'll go through them as quickly as I can. Okay, does it matter what type of meat you use? Yes, it does matter. I wouldn't use something like fillet steak if I was going to slow cook for 4 or 5 hours. You need to use one of those cuts. And if you don't know them, ask the butcher. He will help. Listed them on that page earlier. And I think they're in the ebook as well. Why does it not take all day like a slow cooker? You can if you want it to, but I don't necessarily think that's the best idea to slow cook. Having something cooked for 8 hours means it all tastes the same. And if it tastes great and you like that, then that's awesome. But you don't necessarily have to cook for 8 hours. It's the slow cooker that's put that thought into our head. Do you always have to brown the meat first? No, not necessarily. If you have lots of flavors that you're adding to it, then yeah, just do that instead. I do like to do it because it does make complex flavors and makes them nice for me. How do you get the meat tender? So that's the cut of meat and it's the time and temperature. They are the most important things. So getting that time and temperature right. So like I say, if you can find a recipe on Cookie Do first, try that one out. And then you'll get some sort of idea of how long it takes to cook certain things. I've got one here that says, I have trouble with meat being mushed up. Now, I know that some of you have got TM31, TM5. Most of you have got TM6 or TM7 that are here today. TM6 and TM7, the blades won't move all the time. Your meat shouldn't mush up. So if you still have issues and you have got a TM6 or TM7, reply to my email after this and I'll get back to you because that shouldn't be happening. Will it be as good as a conventional slow cooker? It can be. It depends on what you want. If you want it to cook for 8 hours, personally, I probably would still pull out my slow cooker. The thing is with Thermomix, after 8 hours, it will turn off. So, 15 minutes after 8 hours, it will turn off. Where a slow cooker, a lot of slow cookers will actually drop down in temperature. So they take it out of the danger zone, but they keep it on until you turn it off. Does the mixing bowl get burnt on the bottom? Look, it shouldn't. It will when you're caramelizing things, but after that, you slow cook then. So what tends to happen is that caramelization that's on the base comes off and it comes into your food so that you've got that flavor there. So it shouldn't be browned after you finish slow cooking. I know, people that have had TM31s, TM5s and go straight to a 6 or 7, that freaks them out a little bit about the burning on the bottom of the bowl, but it's normal. It's because we're going now to 160 degrees and it's quite normal and it's easy to get off. If you don't know, I've got videos on YouTube on how to do that. Can you use slow cooking function the same way as you would use a slow cooker? Yes, you can, but should you? I don't know. I prefer not to. I prefer to cook less time, higher heat, less time. But yes, you can if you wanted to. Can I steam vegetables in the Roma while I'm slow cooking? No. If you've got your slow cooker on, it's going to be below 100 degrees. That doesn't create enough steam to steam your vegetables. So no, you can't do that. You would have to do that separate. How much water is needed to prevent it running dry? I've never slow cooked anything and it's dry. So I don't think you have to add any more water. You've got the lid on, or your simmer basket on top, or you've got your Thermomix TM7 lid on. It shouldn't run dry. Yeah, if it is, sing out. If you've got a recipe that does, sing out and I'll give you a hand adapting it. How long can you leave food in the slow cooker after it's finished? You can't. That's what I was just saying before. If you set your slow cooker Thermomix to slow cook for 5 hours, after 5 hours, it will turn off. Well, at 5 hours and 15 minutes. I think it takes about 15 minutes before it decides that it's going to turn off. So you can't do that. Can the TM31 actually do slow cooking? Not really. The blades move the whole time with the TM31. They didn't have the functionality in that particular model for them to stop and start. Another question was, is software updates? Yes. So TM6 and TM7 have software updates because they're Wi-Fi enabled. TM6, they're saying that there'll be a few more updates coming to the TM6, but TM7 has just started. So I'm guessing there's going to be 5 or so years of major updates to the TM7. They've talked about things that are coming, which is awesome. How to prevent properly brown the meat so it doesn't stew. So do it in batches, like I say. So you need to find if you've got a TM6, you need to find a high heat recipe and follow that. Do it in batches, make sure that the weight's right. If you've got a TM7, you just simply go to browning mode. You still have to do it in batches, but you can put 100 to 500, or you can put a kilo in there and browning because it doesn't care. It needs to be more than 100 grams, I think, which is easy enough to do. It's like half an onion. So yeah, so with the TM7, you just go straight to browning mode and it will brown, but do it in batches so it doesn't stew. The other thing you can do is if you're doing this because you want it to be super easy, use a fry pan. If you've got a TM6 or a TM5, just brown your meat in the fry pan. Or if you've got an air fryer, I use my air fryer a lot to brown things these days. It doesn't take very long and it's not a lot of heat, less mess. Splattering on the stove. Do you have to use the blade cover? No, not necessarily. Some recipes don't use the blade cover. Like I said, the beef bourguignon doesn't use it. Is this suitable for TM5? TM5, there is actually a slow cooking collection on Cookie Do for TM5. So there are steps you have to do. Your TM5 could only go, I think it's 90 minutes at a time, and then you have to go to it and do something. So it's not like a thing that you can do and go out for the day. You'd have to go back to it. But yes, there are slow cooking dishes in your TM5. Should you, and how do you brown meat first? I think we covered that. Let me count the ways. We have uses. Okay, so someone says that they've tried slow cooking, but they found the meat not as tender as they would in a slow cooker. It's about time and temperature. So if you're finding that it's not tender, then you've either undercooked it or overcooked it. Start checking your meal before even Cookie Do says it's done. That's what I tend to do. What do you like most about the TM7? It's funny, I asked my husband this because I went, that's a tricky one because there's a lot of things I like about the TM7. It's faster. It's got a larger screen. And my husband said he loves the user interface. So it's much easier to follow, much quicker. There was something on the screen where I showed you on that video where you had to find the weigh scale for your beef cheek bourguignon. With the TM7, there's a little bar at the top, and a lot of people have missed this. So if you've got a TM7, there's a little bar at the top of every single screen. If you touch that little bar, it will drop down and you'll get weigh scales, what else? A timer, and you will get your pre-clean function. So all those three things are things that Vorwerk say, you use these all the time. You can use them anytime, even when it's cooking, when it's doing something, you can click on that and it will drop down. And then you just tap the bottom of the screen and it disappears again. What speed do you use? So slow cooking, it chooses for you. So if you use slow cooking mode, like I say, it'll stop and start and it chooses for you. So you don't have to worry about any reverse mode or anything like that. Recommended beef cut to use. So as you saw that list before, which I can go back to in a sec if anybody wants me to. Okay, so here's another one that the meat was like pulled pork. There are a few dishes that will do that in Cookie Do. So I don't know whether that was intended or the recipe told you to put a blade cover, but all the ones that I've tried that doesn't have a blade cover haven't shredded my meat, as long as I don't cut it, I guess, too small. There's a kind of yes, so the kind of meat does alter the length of time that needs cooking plus the size that you cut it. Can you ordinary slow cook in the TM6? Yes, you can. You can do, normal slow cooking in your TM6 if that's what you choose to do. I'm going to just go back to these cuts again, so you can see those. So they're the cuts that I suggested that are good for slow cooking. Now, that was all those questions done. Has anyone got any other questions for me?
Yes, Beck, I do.
Yeah.
What about oyster blade?
Yes, oyster blade is awesome, but it's got that gristle down the middle, so I don't use it very much because Wayne doesn't like it. Oyster blade is good. Yes.
Because I use it all the time, and I just cut them into four,
Yeah.
and we don't even notice the gristle. The gristle
No.
just seems to disappear.
Yes, me too, but Wayne does.
Ah.
Yeah.
My go-to is skirt steak. Is that skirt?
Skirt steak.
Skirt.
Skirt steak
plain.
I find is quite dry and tough.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I'm using it. Actually, someone did ask, and I thought that was on here. Someone asked about, do I velvet the meat?
In the second page.
Yes, it was in the second lot.
Oh, was it? I missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so velveting is usually done to meat that you're going to stir fry.
Right.
So it's not necessarily for slow cooking. There's a few things that you do with velveting. So you can use corn flour, tapioca flour. You can put baking powder on it, and it helps break down the connective tissue. But it's usually used on things for only on.
I sometimes stir fry. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great for stir fry because it's like, cooking kangaroo and things like that. You need to do quick, fast, and
so I was going to ask you then, thinking about kangaroo, what about goat and venison?
Goat's awesome. I haven't done a lot of venison. It's just hard to get around here. But goat, we live in a community where we have lots of people from India and places like that. So a lot of our butchers have goat, and I love goat. But usually goat's got bones in it. So just be aware of that. And you can cook meat with bones in it in your Thermomix. Just be around, because if a bone gets stuck underneath the blade, you'll hear it, and you'll just have to fix it. So goat's good. All right. Any more questions?
The Yeah, the beef cheeks bourguignon that you have gone through this morning.
Yep.
Can I have that recipe?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And does it change? Do you need to change?
You don't need to change the temperature, but you will need to change the time. Yes,
Yep.
for sure. Yeah.
And approximately how much time difference should there be?
If it's gravy beef and you're using 800 grams, I did it in 4 hours.
Yep.
Instead of I think it was 5.5 for the beef cheek. You know, you'd probably drop another hour off, but just check it. Check it in 3 hours and see what you think. And if it's still a bit tough, just cook it a bit longer.
Cool.
Because it also does matter the size you cut the pieces. That's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to try it. I'm not sure that Graham will like it, so it's better if I only have to have
I
eat
make
it
a lot
twice
of
rather
meat.
than 10 times.
Yeah, I make a lot of pie fillings. My husband loves pies, so I make a lot of pie fillings using the beef bourguignon recipe.
Okay.
And I, change everything up, but I use that method in cookie dough to make it. And sometimes I'll start checking it at 3 hours just to see if it's tender. And if it is, I just pull it out and put it in a dish. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Thank you.
Looks like I might have covered everything. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send you an email. Now, when I send you the ebook is actually on our learning platform. When I send you the ebook, you have to go into the learning platform and download it because it's too big to sit I can't just send it to people's inboxes. A lot of inboxes it just bounces back because it's too big. What I do is I send 2 separate emails. One email will tell you a bit about what we spoke about today. It will actually give a summary of what we've talked about. So it will I'll put that in there. And you'll have a separate email to the ebook. Now, if you already have an account with us, like Verena, Christine, Helen, Wilma, it will be in your account. And then you'll be able to open your account and you'll see it in there with all your other stuff. I think that's it. I'm going to love and leave you now. If there's no more questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Beck. That was great.
All right. No problem.
Thanks, Beck.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Beck.
No problem.